Good morning, everybody. We will start the session now. Thank you so much for the participants who have joined in early. Thanks for your patience and really appreciate your being early for the session. I welcome you all to be part of the Evargo Knowledge Series Industry Expert Session today, where we have with us MS Sriram. I would not take much in terms of a time to stay between you guys and Sriram for the session, but definitely would love to take the opportunity to quickly introduce one of my very good old friend. We have been in the industry for quite some time. I've known Sriram for the kind of work that he has done in the industry, specifically in the firefighting, fire protection space. Driving a very, very high performance sales team across organizations, which cuts across from manufacturers to integrators, as well as working on projects. So this is a very pertinent time for us to talk about in terms of the sales process, and I hope all of you, join this session. Your dear and you are doing well. It's a very unprecedented crisis that you all have bought into, and I'm very, very hopeful and positive that we will be coming out strong as a completely new human race once we get out of this. We are talking about today a quick session in terms of how the entire crisis and the changes that this is bringing in is going to impact the way how we drive our business. And that's where we thought that the sales process is something which is very pertinent for us to talk about in an industry where we are talking about consultation as the key market strategy, engaging with customers, be it an end customer or a system integrator, and or be the consultant, both internal as well as external customers, is something which is predominantly going to change when we look at from a sales process perspective. So I will take this time to invite Mr. Sriram to enlighten us with his experience and the thought process that he will share with us. And I am confident that this is something which you will find interesting and of value. As a good practice, I would request all the participants to kindly keep yourself on mute and take your video off, so that there is a smooth transmission that happens for the session. Mr. Sriram's video will be on, and if you have any questions during the session, request you to kindly type it out on the chat box. And Mohit, my colleague Mohit, is the host of the session, and he will coordinate and for the questions along with Mr. Sriram to answer. We have the session planned till 12 o'clock, where post that we'll have around 15-20 minute session for open discussions where you can directly ask, can share your your video so that it can be seen by all of us. And I welcome you to join the session. Look forward to have a very fruitful discussion. And Mr. Sriram, over to you. Thank you for giving your time today, and look forward to a great learning session today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anik, for the excellent introduction. Shall we go direct into the subject?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Sriram, you can share your screen. Yeah.
Mohit, I think you'll be there riding with me along with the session.
Right.
And good morning, friends, and I hope things are going well with the COVID lockdown and things like that. I think this has been a very good period for us to think about what would happen if there is such a lockdown. I don't think we've ever experienced a lockdown or a situation like this, and it's been the best time for us to think about ourselves and think about how things have been put or jeopardized by a virus which is quite invisible to human eye. Gentlemen, now I would like to start this session by asking a question to all these participants. Mohit, I don't know how many are there. Is it around 15, 18, 20?
Yeah, around 18 are already there. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Gentlemen, I would like to know how many of you from this 18 are salesmen. I would prefer you typing yes or no in your chat box, and Mohit can give me the count approximately, if it is possible. You can just type yes, alphabet yes, or no, N. Simple. Do you have the count, Mohit? Is it
Yeah, yeah. So it's coming. So 3 have already said. 4.
Is it yes or no?
5. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Right.
6, 7. Yeah. So around 8 of them have already given. Yes.
Okay.
Couple of them who are maybe not directly from the sales background. Yeah.
Okay. For those who have said yes, it's well and good. People who have said no, I would still insist that it should be yes. Because you may not be a salesman per se, but day in and day out, all of you are doing selling. You should agree with me if I say that every day your day starts and day ends with selling. Whether it is with your children, whether it is with your spouse, whether it's with your colleague, we all do selling day in and day out. You tell your son or your daughter to go to school, and your son or daughter refuses to go there. What happens? You cajole him. You tell him the benefits of going to school. Look, Baba, you go to school, you learn this. Tomorrow you'll become a pilot, you'll become a doctor, you'll become an engineer, and you create an interest in him to go to school. So that is selling. So you don't have to literally go door to door knocking and take a product and give it to them. That is a, what you call a very basic method of selling. But day in and day out, when we talk to our neighbor, when we talk to our spouse, when we talk to our children, when we talk to our colleagues, we talk to them, we ask them to do this job. We all keep doing selling day in and day out. Would everyone agree with that? Great. Great. Okay. So every single person born on this earth is a salesman. He need not be a salesman as a designation, but he's a salesman. He's a born salesman, and he'll have to continue selling. Otherwise, he's out of this picture at all. He will not be able to gel with the world. Okay, that was my first question. My next question is this. How many of you eat eggs? I'm sure a lot many will say yes.
Yeah, we already have confirmation from around 70.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question connected to this is, which one? And I'm sure it will be the chicken. We call it chicken, we don't call it hen egg, because hen is a general female term for any bird. Peahen we call it. So I would prefer, and I think the Google also says, it is chicken egg. Whether people prefer chicken egg or the duck egg. And I'm sure 90% or probably even 100% will say it is chicken egg. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Why? Why or why not? Why do you take only chicken egg? Why don't you take duck egg? Why not duck egg? One person will say, is it available? Another person will say, I've not seen duck eggs in the market. One person will say, I don't like ducks, so I don't take duck egg. It has not been practiced. Correct? Chicken eggs are easily available, somebody says. Exactly. Why? Chicken and ducks are both birds and they all lay eggs. Why don't we take duck's eggs? In fact, I'll give you some more facts which will enlighten you on the duck egg. You know, by size, the duck egg is 1.5 times bigger than the chicken egg. And these are all not my facts, it's all facts available, proven. Eggs have more nutrition than the chicken eggs in terms of albumin, in terms of protein, all that. Duck's eggs have got more nutrition. Since the duck eggs are stronger, the shell of the duck egg is very strong, the shelf life of a duck egg is longer than the chicken egg. Now, duck can lay 300 eggs in a year, whereas the chicken can lay only 150 eggs in a year, which means it's almost double. In a year, you get 300 eggs of a duck. But still, nobody uses or is familiar with a duck egg. Why is that? Any guesses? Any guesses, please? We have not tasted it. It is not available. All that is a fact. Correct. Now, what is the problem with duck's egg? Because hen sells its egg better. Duck never tries to sell its egg. Hen's egg, if you've seen, I don't know if somebody is managing a poultry or somebody is familiar with poultries, once a hen lays its egg, it starts running around crazily and it starts making a very, very, very peculiar noise, thereby saying that, see, I've laid an egg, I've laid an egg, I've laid an egg. So the people around are familiar with that, and they know that there is a hen which has laid an egg, and they take the egg and give it to the market or use it or do whatever. Whereas what a duck does is it's very silent. It goes to a corner, lays its egg, very silently comes back as if nothing has happened. Most of the duck eggs are getting rotten or getting damaged, and very few duck eggs hatch into ducklings. So this is the problem. The chicken is promoting its sale by saying, see, I've laid an egg. It doesn't know that its chicken, the would-be chicken, is getting killed because the person who is running the poultry takes away the eggs and sells it to the market. But still, nevertheless, the hen is able to sell its egg because it makes a noise. So, gentlemen, what we come to the first thing is, when we want to sell, we'll have to be noisy. We will have to propagate ourselves with the product so that the product reaches the market. We have a product and we just sit on it and say somebody will come and buy it. It never happens in this world. Right? Okay. So shall we proceed further? Now we have something called the sales striker. That is the balance of the sales. What an ideal salesman has to do is this. A professional selling skill will involve his concern for the customer, his concern for the sale, and of course the concern for the organization or the company which he is working for. So this is a customer need is paramount. You should also fulfill your need, which is a sale, and you should also be able to fulfill the organizational need, which is the profit, revenue, etc., etc. Mohit, everybody is online?
Yes, yes.
So things are clear, right? I suppose.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I think this sales tracker is clear to everyone. So the next thing that we'll have to see is, okay, what do customers care about? What does a buyer care about? $100 question. They care about themselves, obviously. They care about their need, their want, and their desire. This is what a customer would ideally care about. What is a need? What is a want? What is a desire? Now, there's a difference between a need, a want, and a desire. Today, I am hungry. So my need is I want food. That's a need. Even if I get some rice chawal with buttermilk is food for me. That's a need which will fulfill my basic requirement. That's a need. My want would be I am hungry today, but I would prefer to have a biryani. That's my want. Now, I have what you call categorize the type of food that I will have, and so that becomes a want. So there's one step ahead. I go beyond the need. It comes to want. And what is my desire? I would still want a biryani, which is a branded one from a branded store. So that's a desire. All three will fulfill my hunger, but my preferences are different at different categories. So one person's need may be one person's want and desire. A beggar today would want a basic food. Even rice or chapati would do for him, which would be a desire for him, but it is only a need for another person. So a person's need, want, and desire vary tremendously depending on the situation, his social status, etc., etc. Now, what do they buy? Any answers to this? What do they buy? You go and sell biryani to a person. What do they buy? They don't buy a product. They are not buying biryani. They are not buying a laptop. They are not buying a cell phone. They're selling a product. You cannot be a salesman. Unless you're selling a solution, you cannot be a salesman. See, you don't have to sell only a product to be a salesman. You can sell a concept, you can sell a service, you can sell an idea, you can sell so many things. You're still selling. So every organization doesn't sell a product. Mr. Anik and Mohit don't sell products. They sell solutions. They don't have products. Products are all from different. Ultimately, what a customer is looking at is a solution to his problem or his need or want and desire. So if you are able to focus, sorry, somebody is talking. Okay. So if you are able to focus on a customer's need, want, and desire and fulfill that, then I think you have won the game. So what you are literally doing is not giving him a product, you are giving him a solution. You are allowing the person to come out of his hunger pangs. Right? Is this clear, please? Can we go ahead? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Now, why do people buy? There are a lot of motivational things that makes a person to buy. Let's list down a few of them. I have given some description to it, like you can earn more, you can serve more, you can get stronger. These are all gain. So the motive here is to gain. Pride. You know, I buy a Mercedes Benz because I can get a pride out of it. I go and buy an apartment in the best localities because that gives me a pride. I send my son to the best school, international school, because that gives me a pride. Imitation. Why do I buy? because the neighbor has got it. You always remember the Onida advertisement. Owner's pride, neighbor's envy. So the neighbor has got it, so I buy. The people around are wearing this type of dress, so I buy that. Right. Our honorable prime minister is wearing a jacket, so a lot of people are following that. It's the fashion, it's the trend. So those are imitations. People buy out of fear. A lot of things are sold on fear. Basically insurance, your vehicle insurance, your life insurance, all these are sold out of fear of loss of life, of prestige, of rejection, etc. And finally, people buy just for pleasure. How do you think the tourism industry is surviving? Tourism industry is selling only pleasure. The tourism industry sells because people enjoy, people feel luxurious. So here again, gentlemen and ladies, if there are any, what I buy as a gain need not be the same thing for another person. He may buy it for a pride, he may buy it as an imitation. Or what I buy need not have only one particular reason. I may buy it for gain, I may buy it for fear. I'll buy an insurance for fear of protection. Or if something happens, then if my car is meeting an accident, then I have an insurance. I also buy an insurance, life insurance, because it is giving me after 5 years some money back. So that's a gain. So there can be 2 or even 3 reasons why people buy. And once again, I am stressing the point, the reason why I buy may be a different reason to why another person is buying. Right? Am I clear so far?
Yes, yes.
Good. Good. Okay. So there are 5 reasons why any product is bought or any solution is bought. Let's not call it a product anymore. We are talking about selling solution, not product. Now, what motivates people? I mean, I'm not talking about buying. What motivates people in general? What is motivation? There are only 2 reasons why people get motivated. First motivation is every person would like to move away from pain. Anything which is irritating or painful, which causes a mental agony, people, that is one part of the motivation. Next motivation is people always move towards pleasure. You either move away from pain or move towards pleasure. There are only 2 reasons why people get motivated. You think about anything you did in your life, it will boil down to one of these 2 facts. You can think about it. You will either have done something, got motivated to do something because you are either moving away from pain or you would want to go and move towards pleasure. So these are 2 things which people get motivated. So let us try and utilize this in our selling techniques when we go next time to sell a product. See what is the pain point of the customer, or see what, by giving this product or solution, what pleasure would he achieve or get. And pleasure, it could be a gain, it could be whatever. So those are pleasures, and moving away from pain and pleasure. I think things are clear with you right now. What is this FAB technique? What is this FAB technique when we do selling? F is the feature. What is the feature? What is the feature of this cell phone?
Next.
Gentlemen, things are clear?
Yes, yes. Yeah, clear.
Okay.
On continue. Yeah.
Right. what is the feature of this cell phone? I would say it has got 4 GB RAM, 5.5-inch screen. What else? It is sleek, very handy, lightweight. All these are attributes, features of this product. Now, what is A? Advantages. When I say there is a feature, there will be 2 or 3 advantages attached to that particular feature. Like, for example, when I said 4 GB RAM, you're all the technical people, you're all technical people, I'm sure. You will understand 4 GB RAM gives you a better speed. And when I say 5.5-inch screen, better visibility, those are advantages. Now, finally, what is B? Any guesses, please? I want people to type out. What is B? Come on. At least.
Benefits, what people are, we have couple of answers.
Great. Anik is replied to it. Okay, fine. Benefits. Now, a product, this cell phone has features. So each of the feature will have 1 or 2 or 3 advantages, but that will not serve the purpose. What is the benefit? What will I get by using this cell phone is the benefit. If I say it's a 4 GB RAM, I will say, so what? So what if it's 4 GB RAM? So what? You, as a salesman, have to imbibe or ingrain in me is, by using a 4 GB RAM, what is the benefit I get? Right? So by using a 5.6-inch or 5.5-inch screen, what is the benefit? It is not a benefit. You're just giving the advantage of using your feature. Now, each of the feature will have few advantages. Some of the advantages, not some, all the advantages should be translated into a benefit for the customer to actually be attracted to the product and buy it. If I say it's got a 4 GB RAM, so what? That person is giving 6 GB RAM at the same price. No, that will not sell. A feature will never sell. Please. Advantages. Again, I will object. If you say 4 GB RAM gives you speed, no. So what? You will only be looking at price war and objections. Unless you tell the benefit which the person will derive out of it, or which literal sense meets his need, meets his want, meets his desire, then only the product will get sold. Be it the best product in the world. Unless the customer sees the benefit, he will not buy it. I remember an incident which happened many years back. We wanted, me and my son had gone to a multi-branded store to buy a TV. You know, those days TVs were big and people were thin. TVs were fat and we people were very thin. Now it's the other way around. Those were the days. I'm talking about the 90s when we went to buy a TV. We were looking at different brands, and one person who was selling one particular brand came in and said, "So this has got this feature, this has got that feature, this has got this feature." Okay, so what? Then he said, "Sir, I am going to tell you something which will make you buy this product, sir. You know what? This product has got a 100-year calendar built in on this TV." I said, "So what?" It never appealed to me. What is the use of a calendar being on a TV? 100 years. I am talking about 1990, 2090, the calendar. What will I do with it? First of all, whether the TV should be available for 100 years, whether I will be available for 100 years. He was selling something which has no benefit to a person. So, I mean, he was a worst salesman, I should say. I'm talking about the 90s. He was talking about a 100-year calendar. How does that meet my need? What do I buy a TV for? Let him talk to me about the pixels. Let him talk to me about the clarity. Let him talk to me those days about the number of channels. Some people have offered 32 channels. This person can offer 64 channels. Those days it was channels which was important. So that person was not selling the product. He was just talking off the air, and he would never have achieved a sale at all. So that one incident I was just reminded about. Anyway, going ahead, are you very clear about feature, advantages, and benefits so far? Then we go to the next technique of selling. So what we have now covered is you'll have to be loud and clear that you are selling a product. Don't sell a product on feature and advantages, sell it on benefit. Understand the customer's need, want, and desires, and sell him a solution and not a product. So there are 3 learnings which we have taken so far. Moving ahead. Selling is a smile process. Sales process is a smile. Of course, every salesman has to keep smiling, even if he is badly beaten up by the customer. He beaten up not in literal sense. If he is thrown out of the office or his customer's place, he should keep smiling. Anyway, what does that SMILE in sales process stand for? First, you need to search your customer, search your right customer. And when I say search, I'm talking about understanding his need, want, and desires. I keep talking about the same thing, need, want, desires. You have to search a customer who's looking for your product or service as a solution, right? M for me. I investigate. L for lead. What these stand for, I'll come to it again. E is execute. SMILE, search, meet, investigate, lead, and execute. Now, what is search? There are many methods. All these, every basic salesman would have done in his life. Right? I will hold this slide for a few minutes for the people to understand. It should be either through inquiries, advertisements, it could be cold calling, it could be walk-ins, it could be roadshows, exhibitions, references, web inquiries, tenders, press, magazines, net, etc., etc. The list can go on. So you know how to search a customer. This is a basic thing. Unless you have a customer, you can't sell a product, or you can't sell a solution. Then we come to something called meet. What do we do when we meet? Now, this is very important thing. When you get an opportunity or an appointment to meet a customer, the most important thing is to create a first impression. First, he should like you. Then only he'll like his product. So how do you create a first impression? How many of you know of the Meherbian rule? Now, I would tell you something which it's hard to believe, but it's a fact. Now, when you see a person, I'm not talking about a sales, even if you see a person on the road, you always create a first impression of that person within the first 7 seconds of meeting. Not meeting, even if you see a person, you create an impression. How many of you agree to it? Like you see a person on the road, you will decide, "Arey, this fellow is a rogue." Or you'll say, "Arey, this man looks to be a very genuine person. He's very, very sweet." So also it happens with the other sex also, right? Okay. But what exactly is happening in that first impression, in that 7 seconds? First 7 seconds are very crucial for you to create a first impression with anybody. Now, in that, there are three aspects which create a first impression. One is your body language. Second thing is the tone or your pitch of the voice. And the third thing is the words. Now, I need some participation here. Now, I've given you three criteria: body language, your tone, and your verbal communication, verbs. That is what you're saying, hello, how are you, and things like that. Now, I want you to give me a percentage of how much of importance is each of them. B is body language, T is the tone or the pitch, W is the words. Please put B, T, W and give a percentage to it. How much is important in creating a first impression? Come on, need at least 2 or 3 people to respond. B, T, and W. I'm waiting. Mr. Kulkarni says equal, which is 33, 33, 33. Okay. Make a wild guess. Sanjay is 5 to 7. Okay, out of 10. Great. Word is 50, Shailaja. Okay. So, which means Shailaja says it is very important to frame our words before we talk. What is 20%? What is 20%? I don't get. BTW, body language, tone, pitch, and words. Okay, that's it. Let's not waste time. I will open the Pandora's box and you will be amazed to understand what I'm saying. You will tend to not believe me at all. Now, okay, people are going ahead. Okay, let's stop with that and let us proceed with the subject. Now, when I said three things are very important for creating a first impression, first is the body language. How you present yourself. That is the most important aspect of first impression. Not words, not tone. You know how much of this, how much of this is attributed to body language? You will not believe. It is 55%. It is just 55% of the look, appearance, the way you behave, way you conduct, way you present yourself. All that will carry 55% of the first impression. Next comes to tone, pitch, which is a modulation on like what is the volume, what is the pitch, where is the stress, where is the emphasis, where do I pause while speaking. All this will attribute to 38%, 38. So tell me, 55 is body language, tone and pitch is 38. So these two put together is 93%. So your verbal is a mere 7% of your communication or creating a first impression. It is just a meager 7%. It's hard to believe, but it's a fact. It's a fact. So 93% of the first impression is created non-verbally before you talk. It's mostly non-verbal. Like if I say hello, I can say hello. I can say hello. So that itself is creating a first impression with the person whom I am meeting. So it is not the word hello which is important. It is the way I put forth the word which is catching the other person. So I know it is hard to believe, but you just have to think over it. The first impression is most important when you meet a customer. So that 7 seconds, the crucial 7 seconds, if you are able to impress, then things can proceed in a smoother manner. Number 2 is don't be tensed, don't show your stress, be relaxed. Nothing is going to happen, whether it's either it is 50-50, either you take the order or you don't take the order. It's 50-50. So it's not that you lose your life. But for some people, some salesmen, it could be life, but there is always a tomorrow. So never show your stress, even if you're stressed within. Never show your stress to your customer, right? People who have experienced one-on-one selling would agree with this. If you are stressed, your presentation goes awry. You are not able to present. Your brain goes blank at times. You are not able to continue conversation. So all these are very important. So first create a first impression, then relax, right? And prepare a general benefit statement of your product or your solution which you're going to pitch for. So this is your activity when you do a meet. Next we go to investigate. What is investigate? What is investigate? Investigate is basically you keep talking to the customer to understand what his want and what his desires are. What is the solution is looking for from you. You will have to investigate that. How do you investigate? You by questioning. I mean, questioning is it's not a court martial there. Your judge is questioning or a policeman is questioning. You are investigating. Your questions have to be in a sweet manner, whereby a question could be an open question, a specific question, or a closed question. It is, again, what are these things? We'll delve on it in a different platform, not right now. But as it is, please understand, you should ask relevant questions to pull out answers which would help you sell a product. So this is the process of investigation. And as you investigate, as you ask questions, you are growing his need. Like to a hungry person, if you're wanting to sell a biryani, you'll have to keep talking to him so that his hunger pangs will increase and his taste buds starts salivating, right? Okay, that I told you in literal terms. This is what investigate means. You will have to grow the need of a person by keeping on putting questions to him. Just put questions, put open questions, specific questions, closed questions, just to give you a little more on what type of questions. Open questions are questions which would give an answer in a paragraph. Like, you'd say, what is the best place that you have visited last summer? What is the tourist spot which you have listed last summer? I would like to explain the spot. If it's a closed question, like, did you have breakfast today? It would be either a yes or a no. There's nothing beyond to answer that. So that's a closed question. So you should start with open questions so that it gives you enough time to understand the customer's need, want, and desires. To make the funnel narrower. And then you ask him an open or closed question so that you know you are on the dot of what his solution would be. So these are open, specific, and closed questions. Okay, so that much about investigate. Now the fourth alphabet is SMI L. What is L? L is lead. Lead is, why do I have an objection here? A lead is a person, once you tell him a solution, there would be an objection to purchase, to buy. lead through the objections is what it means. The process of leading your customer through the objection is the process of doing this. It's basically overcoming objections. Whenever people objecting, they are indifferent to your product. They are skeptical about your product. Or they misunderstood what the exact solution is or of the product. So they are not very clear about it. So all these are not customer's mistake at all. It's your mistake, the salesman's mistake. Remember, I'm sorry. Just remember one thing. When a person is objecting, they are actually signals of buying. These are buying signals. Okay. So we have covered 4 alphabets. S, M, I, finally, we have the alphabet. Sorry. Okay. I have some more slides on objection. Why do people object? I'm sorry about it. Now, the reasons for objecting on a product or a solution is this. I don't like to make a decision. I'm not good at taking decisions, so I object. I find ways and means of objecting to what a salesman is telling. I prefer old habits. I don't like changes. You come with a new product or a new solution, but I would like to stick to my old solution, even though the solution or the product may be obsolete, or there can be much more improvement in your product than what I'm using. But I would, because I'm afraid of change, so I don't want to go for new product. Averse to change, same thing. Or I would have had a bad experience, not with you. I tried to change one of my product in my system, and by doing that, I had a bad experience. So I don't want to look at change in any of my systems, in any of my products. So that is some unpleasant past experience. Or who are you to sell to me? I am greater than you. So that ego is killing me. Why should a salesman win by taking an order from me? I don't like it. I should be always the winner. So I come what may, I will not allow that person to take an order from me. So that ego is playing with me. Now, this is an eye opener. If you can read it right, most salesmen give up after hearing no 2 times. So they get dejected. This fellow will never buy it. They go once, they say no. Second time they follow up, they say no. Then they remove him from my prospect list. He is no good. But most customers buy after saying no 4 times. So had he endured another 2 times, he would have won the sale. So this is a fact again. Most salesmen give up after hearing no 2 times, but most customers buy after saying no 4 times. Think about it. Think about it. Right. Continue with this. Why do people object? I don't have the need. The lack of need. Probably why I am not buying your product is you have not sort of pushed the product with its benefit to me. I have not seen the benefit of buying your product. What is WIFM? Any guesses? What's in it for me? Is the only mantra which will make me buy. What is in it for me? WIFM. So when you are selling a product, if I it for me, then I won't buy it. Why should I? What is in it for me is what every salesman has to focus on the client. What is there in your product or your solution for the client? So once that is identified, your sales is done. And you have the price war, which always keeps going. Now, how do you tackle price? If your product's benefit weighs more than the price on a scale, on a balance, if your benefits are more and your price is less, then there is no price war. If your price is more and your benefits are less, then you don't make a sale. So you will have to create your pitch in such a manner that you show more benefits than the price what you're going to sell it at. So that is the price. Features. There may be some features which are missing in your product, which other people may have. That is not your problem. Time. I don't have the time to buy it now. This price and time you would have come across very, very frequently. Come next week. Let's meet next month. I don't have the time now. I will have to get the budget for it. So I need time. I'll have to get my superior's approval for purchase. So give me time. Time and price are two major objection points we generally come across. In my experience, I'm just talking about it. Then the source of the product. That is also very important. Like I have a product, I have two distributors, one distributor A, distributor B. My customer he must be not very happy with distributor A because of various reasons. His credits are not good. He doesn't maintain delivery. He doesn't maintain proper packaging, whatever it is. The distributor A is not in favor as far as the customer is concerned. So my source, the distributor B, will be a better source for the customer. So the source also makes a vital point why people will object to it. Or even a brand. I don't like this brand. I will still prefer to go for another brand. That is also a source, the product, the brand, everything. Now, finally, we come to execute. Now, when I put this slide execute, you saw one bicycle coming inside. People must be wondering what this bicycle is all about. Any guesses? Any guesses? I'm not selling a bicycle, surely. Come, I want one or two people to respond. At least I would know there are people on the other side hearing me. Come on, gentlemen. Keep pedaling. I like that. Continuous process. Okay. Great. Okay. There's somebody else. Sales cycle must. Sorry, sales cycle. I didn't get that.
Sales cycle must
Mohit, what
go
was
on.
that?
Yeah.
Can you read it?
Yeah, it's sales cycle must go on.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. So you move forward only when you pedal. Sales is a continuous process. Good
Okay.
balancer for
Fine.
learner. Yeah.
I'm very happy. Everything is a fact, but I have a different notation or interpretation to this. The customer is the front wheel and you are the back wheel. Think about it. The customer is always in the front. He will always feel that he is the person who's doing everything. But actually, in a cycle, if you know, the back wheel controls the speed, gives the momentum, does everything, but it still remains at the back. The front wheel, even if it's trying to take a deviation, the back wheel can stop it by braking or pedaling slower or whatever. So you keep the customer always in the front wheel and you be in the back wheel and allow the customer to enjoy his what you call his prowess by saying, I am the person who is guiding this cycle. I am the person I am taking people to a destination. Let the front wheel keep thinking about it. But fact remains that the back wheel is very important in guiding, in controlling the pace, everything. So allow the customer to be in the front wheel and you be the back wheel and guide him through the process of sales closure. When I say execute the sales process by closing the sale. That's what I meant. So how many people like this interpretation of bicycle? Come on, I want yes, no. Okay. Oh, somebody says great. Thank you. Yes. Great thought. Now, people who have been in product sales or solution sales will agree to it. You will have to allow the person who's going to buy or your prospective buyer to be on the front wheel and you guide him through the process. If you take the front wheel, no, things will not happen. You be always at the back wheel and allow the person to let the decision also be given the benefit to the buyer. Let him say, I have decided. Don't ever take the benefit of, I helped you deciding. Let it be in the back seat. Let that remain in the back seat and let all the glory go to your customer. And your only glory is take the sale. Close. Right? Okay. So we have seen SMILE process, which is SMILE, seek, meet, investigate, lead through the objection, and execute closure. So we have a SMILE process for sales. Now, when you close the sale, the customer would look for three things, mostly, not mostly, 100 times, 100 out of 100, he will think about cost, he'll think about quality, he'll think about time. So, in an ideal scenario, I have a product which is free of the best quality and given to him right now, then you win the sale. I have a product, it is a best quality product, and I'm giving it to you free, no cost. The quality is best, cost is zero, time is now. I give it to you, then the sale is done. But ideal situations can never be achieved. You have a cost to it. The quality, yes, you can give the best quality, but there is something which can better the best also. And time, you need time. You can probably deliver the product today or tomorrow, or some of the products 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months. To order a machinery, it takes 6 months to deliver. So a product will revolve around, a purchase will revolve around cost, quality, and time. Now, methods of closing, this again runs into a big list. Now, what is 1, 2, 3 closing, alternative closing, assumptive closing? There are so many things which today's session will not permit me to take you through. Now, finally, when I have come to the closing, there is something called emotional, and I have put it in caps. Now, please remember, any product which is bought, you will have an emotional attachment to it. A product always gets purchased because of emotion, and once the purchase is done, people would like to attach a logic to it. So believe me when I say most of the purchases happen out of emotion and not by logic, but people tend to attach a logic to it rather than attaching an emotion. Right. I have another example to tell you. The other day I was watching some movie on Prime or something. It was a Tamil movie. I was very impressed with one of the scenes where a would-be politician is standing for some MLA or MP, some local councillor seat or something. What he does is he assembles a good gathering for a speech. Then he sends one of his goons, talks to him in his ear and tells him, right, that fellow with red turban, you get his name. And that lady who's wearing a green sari, get her name also. So these people, not directly with them, they go to their person sitting next to, somehow get the names of these two people and tell this fellow who's going to start his speech. He starts his speech by saying, "Hello, Mr. So and so, are you keeping well?" That fellow gets elated. One MLA, he knows my name. This, "Amma, how are you? How is your health?" He starts his speech with this two dialogues. What is he trying to sell? He is trying to sell emotion. He's getting emotionally attached to those two people. Are such a big shot who is standing on a stage is calling me by name. That those two people is good enough. I mean, a sample. So, which means he's got an emotional connect with those people. Though he didn't have it, he had the knack of getting those names and addressing them by name, whereby his emotional connect with the audience has already happened. Then whatever he says verbal is not of any use at all. Coming back to the Mehrabian rule, whatever he says, 7% is only going to go attached. He has created a first impression by an emotional connect. So that is what I wanted to emphasize when I say most of the closing happen emotionally, but we would try to attach a logic to it. Generally, that happens. Again, this is a point for you to think over. Now, this is one important point to remember. Close starts with letter C, alphabet C. What is C? C is conviction. Without C, what happens? You lose. How many of you agree to it? Unless a salesman has a conviction to sell or has a conviction that he is going to close the sale, he is not going to be successful. Unless you have the conviction to close the sale, no sale will get closed. It will be lost. So if you remove C from close, it is lose. You're losing the sale. Right? And finally, I think we are just on time. Please remember, you can't win all the customers all the time. Then you're a monopoly. Your company doesn't require a salesman. They can sell the product sitting in their table. Rejection is not a failure, it's a lesson learned. Please remember, even if you're the best of the salesmen, you can't win all the customers all the time. Then where is the question of having competition? For one product, you have 15 or 20 manufacturers making the same product. So it is very important to know what is your share of the pie. If your share is 10% of the pie, you think of increasing 10 to 11, 10 to 15. You don't think of increasing that 10% to 100. It will never happen. Plus, you will have to allow for new manufacturers who are mushrooming every day. So your only objective or the company's objective should be how to make my 10% into 15% next year. Define a timeline for it. Define a timeline. You can't say 10 to 15% indefinitely. Whenever I achieve, it will be done. No. You define a timeline. You define the percentage increase. I'm just giving a number, 10 to 15. It can be 10 to 12. It can be 10 to 20, depending on what product and what is the market you're. It was in your sales pitch, whether you didn't attach the importance of benefit to the customer or whatever. So these two are very important. So no salesman is 100% successful all the time. Then we'll have only one salesman in the entire world. It's not possible. That's it. I come to the end of the session. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patient hearing. And for the people who will be interested, I would still give my number and my mail ID. You can just take a snapshot of that so that people can engage with me later also. And I will try and do my best in answering to your queries, if any, later. I am open for any questions right now on the subject that we discussed.
Yeah. Okay. So one, maybe from my side, where we see now most in the solution selling or in a low voltage, there is something called as inside sales. And going forward, maybe post this academic, we would see that lot of people are meeting online. So in our meet in the smile process, on the meet part, we said the body language would be somewhere around 50-55%. Then you have the tone and words. So with this inside sale and the online perspective coming in, whether the other two aspects would have a more weightage than the body language then?
No, it again, unless you're doing a sale on a telephone call where you're not visible, then you don't have a question of body language. You can even lie on your cot and make a sale pitch. So when I talk about the three aspects body language, it is actually two people meeting each other either physically or virtually. So if one of them is missing, obviously the other two will take parlance over that. So there again, your tone and pitch will take the major share over the verbal communication.
Yeah.
Clear, Mohit?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, now I am visible on the screen today. If I am not visible, then what Mohit will look at is how I am presenting my tone, whether it is too harsh, too loud, where I am pausing, where I am giving a break to my sentences, where is the emphasis. All that will be more important to Mohit than what is exactly communicated. I mean, these are actually, when we do a session one-to-one, there is an exercise where people would be asked to talk about one single sentence in a different manner, whatever manner they feel. Like it's a beautiful day, for example.
Okay.
Beautiful day. So there I would stress on beautiful. Another person would say it's a beautiful day. For him, the stress is on day. So these are tone and pitch which will take preferences over the actual words.
Right.
Got it, Mohit?
Yeah.
Great.
So there is one more question by a participant from Mr. Balkrishna.
Yeah.
So what he's saying, sir, is there any innovative idea for salesperson in the current scenario?
Innovative idea. I told you a salesman is born from the day he is born till he goes to the grave. He is a salesman. Innovation is up to me. Like a baby is born, how will the baby announce that it is hungry? Nobody taught the baby that if he cries or he or she cries, he'll get his milk. Who taught the baby that? Nobody. So the baby instinctively starts crying and the mother instinctively knows that the baby is hungry. So what is the innovation that you can do is open to everyone. You can innovate the type of selling, but please remember, these are basic techniques. You do whatever innovation, unless you tell him the benefit, he won't buy. These are, I'm not talking about, I'm not a magician who can create a new sale. I'm not a magician. I'm only giving you tips from what I've learned and what I've experienced over a period of 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
So innovation is anybody's sort of thought process or brainwave, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Maybe.
I have a question for Mr. Sriram. This is Anik this side.
Yeah, tell me,
So,
Nick.
if I can ask this question, you have been in this industry for the last 40 years, where you have seen a lot of changes happening in the industry from the perspective of how things have evolved, how selling as a process has evolved. In the
Yeah.
current scenario, where we are talking about the norms of social distancing, the norms of cost optimization are something which are going to be the new reality, which would make even an offering can come from an integrator to a client, or let's say from an integrator trying to procure it from a manufacturer for that part, from a solutions for a client perspective. Offering management per se would change or evolve. Right? While you did speak about the basic for the sales process, and this is something which are absolutely relevant at any on any day and under any circumstances. How do you see this now with the current scenario of where the market might evolve slowly in the next couple of months as we come out of this crisis? Do you see, for example, frustration, for example, setting in as a part of the sales process among sales guys? The delay in projects can be concerns. Budgeting can be a big concern for that part. So from your experience that you have seen this industry evolve over a period of the last 4 decades that you have been part of that, how do you think salespeople per se should be prepared for this kind of change, which is quite natural. You can't blame this because this is something which nobody was prepared for, right? So what would be your messages to a sales guy in terms of what all things that they can do beyond what you spoke about, from a perspective of preparedness while approaching customers, while approaching clients, or even while, for example, budgeting or keeping the entire 360-degree view from that perspective of that need that you are trying to meet up for your customers by. If you just can elaborate a bit more, I guess that can be wonderful to hear from your perspective.
Perfect. Thanks for the question, Anik. Now, we have never faced a situation like this in the past at all. So what is going to happen is anybody's guess. Like coming to a sales perspective of a salesman. Now, one thing is for sure that the online selling, virtual selling is going to take preference over physical selling. Point number one. Point number two is this will largely depend on the product or the service that an individual company is offering. Now, a service or a product may or may not get sold virtually, or it can go the other way also, where a product would require a person to get met by a client physically to carry on the sale. For example, product would require a demonstration. If I am able to do a demonstration online, fair enough, I could probably convince a customer doing a demonstration online. But many products would still require a physical presence at the customer's premises to conduct a demonstration. So, Anik, to answer your question in a very short form, online selling would definitely take preference, and people would have to identify strong platforms. I'm not boasting or taking a big credit of Anik, but a platform like Evergrow could help in a big way pitch the product to reach the customer, point number one. And it should also be kept in mind that come what may, a customer's outlook will still remain the same. Like, for example, if I am to go out in the market and sell, and tomorrow I just try and make a phone call and close a sale, that the customer's ego would still say, why the hell can't you come and meet me to close the sale? Unless me as a salesman knows that customer in and out, it doesn't happen. A cold calling will remain a cold calling. A customer has to be met, means has to be met. So I don't think the scenario is going to change 180 degrees that way, but there is going to be a trend where things would take preference to be sold online and things would happen faster. Number one is the next point, which would boil down is the manufacturing industry has to cope up with the online selling, which means the production capacity should be great. Today, I go to Amazon facility they offer, I order it as a Prime customer, I get the product sometimes tomorrow. Are the manufacturers ready to stock such products and give it to the customer tomorrow? Whether the customer requires it tomorrow or not is a different question. But still, I want it tomorrow, so I want it. So if you are not giving it to me tomorrow, I'll go to a product which is available tomorrow. So these are the plus and minuses of online selling, but we have to live with the fact that there would be a minor shift of sales happening through the online platform. That's my conclusion. I think, Anik, I answered your query.
That's a very interesting take, and thanks for touching upon. Honestly, it was not a planted question for the participants, but trying to get Mr. Sriram talk about it. I appreciate your aspect of that part. So if I have to look at it, you are saying that yes, there would be a change in the way how customers behave tomorrow, right? There would be a shift change and stuff. And coming back to the point of the online sales, and this is something which we personally believe, and that's something which has gone into the thinking of when we were trying to build up Imarco also as such is, see, selling as a process is a long drawn process. The purchase of the solution can happen through a simple email based purchase order being sent out or somebody putting some clicks and making an order. That is absolutely immaterial, and an online platform can facilitate only that much part of the process where the ordering system can be automated and you have got a proper system back in front. What is important is, and would typically be something that we have to keep in mind is, with the whole aspect of this social distancing thing being practiced, and I guess that's something which will be there with us. No, I mean, for a fact that a lot of our personal behavior towards maybe hygiene, towards the way you touched upon the point of the body language, how we carry ourselves. All of these things will start making a lot of difference when we are talking about going on to go and meet a customer, even if that's a customer's place first, right? So I think that is where it is significant for everyone to think of that. How do we first of all create an environment that when we are going and meeting a customer, we make him comfortable and not make him feel insecure. And that's something which is going to be significantly a big change in the way how our sales process or our customer interaction process will typically evolve out. Online as a platform or digital as a mode has something already came into our life. I'm sure participants were there in the session today, and many of you have joined through your smartphones. Many of you would have joined from your desktops. You guys today, consume a lot of online content, which is predominantly there. So going back to the point of Mr. Sriram when he said that, what are you talking to them? How are you talking to them? And what are you communicating is something which should be very, very significantly making a difference from a perspective of aiding into your sales process, right? In terms of content would be consumed more digitally. So are we prepared for that? Do we really have a capability for positioning ourselves in a manner of adopting that digital mode of consumption that the consumers or customers are looking at? It might be a purchase officer for a large end client, or might be an end user or an individual homeowner who's typically, let's say, looking at for a home solution for his house. So, but a lot of this content is digitally consumed. So, as service providers or as solution providers, we are manufacturers or we are integrators. this is something which I guess would be a very key component, and I'm sure you will agree with Mr. Sriram that this part would become a very, very big content part for being able to take this thing to the customer community, right? From a perspective of how we conduct ourselves from a content perspective and how do we connect with them in the right manner.
Perfect.
I think any more questions that we have from any of the participants? You guys just raise hands to the tool itself, or can unmute yourself and ask a question. If anyone want to ask a direct question to Mr. Sriram.
Rajesh.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Good. Tell me.
Yeah, thanks, Anik and Mohit, everywhere for creating a platform like this. To have a session organized through Mr. Sriram. One thing which he has been talking about regarding the online processing which has been happening. Definitely, there's going to be a revolution in the online marketing, but the product what we select and how far it is going to be used, that is what is the question which we do. So not all products, as a salesperson, I've been putting it in the process. Not all products can be bought in online. It definitely needs some sort of a explanation as well as the product's features to be informed accordingly. So that will definitely yield us as well as catch a lot of things, where we can be able to grasp the customer and find out, as he had rightly pointed out, the need as well as the desire what he has got, unless and until we meet the customer. So this is one point which I thought I should like to share, in fact.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think you are in actually conventional salesman, and what you said is perfectly right. Some of the products, as I also mentioned, would require a physical one-to-one dialogue with the customer for selling. Not all products can be online. That's agreed.
Right. Thanks, Anik.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think there was a question. I think Mohit, you would ask this question. Is it always good to take forward call in sales? So, Mr. Sriram, if you want to answer this question.
What is the question? I didn't get it.
Is it always good to take forward call in sales?
What does he mean? I don't follow. What is forward call?
Okay.
Cold calling he is talking about? What is that, Mohit, if you can explain?
No, I think it's from some other participant called Mohit. He has a follow-up question also, that sometimes a sales guy make wrong commitment to client and client doesn't respond at all. Any suggestions on this?
All right. So if I ask Mohit, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sriram sir, good morning. My simple question is that sometimes any sales guy make a wrong commitment to the client on the product or on any sales figures. So is there any suggestion on this, like how to get rid of this point?
Now one thing about a salesman is generally a customer's outlook on a salesman is that when there is a product which is having 10 features, the salesman will talk about 100 features.
Yeah.
The general outlook when you have a salesman at your doorstep also. I mean, he is a person who will exaggerate things. So in the anxiety of taking a sale, there are maybe wrong commitments made, maybe on delivery, maybe on the technical features, they may be on this, but over a period of time, what a person would firmly believe is be very truthful. Say, call a spade a spade. I mean, even if it is at the cost of a sale, if you call a spade, at least tomorrow you will be able to meet the customer. But once you made a wrong commitment, you have lost a customer for your life. And it's not with the product, it's with the person. Tomorrow, Mohit sells product A today. Tomorrow, he goes to the customer with product B. Even if the B is the best product available, Mohit will never get a sale because he has created a bad first impression of giving a wrong commitment. Never give a wrong commitment. Please try to avoid in the booking a sale. Lot of salesmen do that. but tell them, sorry, it is not available tomorrow, it will be available next week. Nothing wrong in that. Even if it's at the cost of the sale, I would advocate talking what is fair. I know it's difficult to practice, but try doing that. And I should try and add something. Mohit, if you're online, please.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Please remember, retaining a customer is, or rather, I'll put it the other way. Getting a new customer, it's 8 times as difficult as retaining a single customer. Think over it.
Yeah.
You have a customer, retaining a customer is that much simpler than to get a new customer. So it is very important to retain our customer base, and then, rather than losing any customer. That customer, once lost, is going to do a negative propaganda of your product and yourself to the extent it can damage your entire, what you call, the sale. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, right, sir. Got your point. Thank you.
People who are asking for some reference material or PPT, so for their knowledge, maybe in couple of days, the recording of this session would be available on the Evargrow YouTube channel. So that's one way of going back again what we discussed, and secondly, as a refresh, and secondly, Mr. Sriram has already shared his coordinates. So if something beyond what we have discussed in the session, something required, so any one of you can.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for the platform, Mohit and Anik.
Yeah.
Anik, I'm really thankful to you for giving me this platform. I could spend an hour and a half now sharing whatever I have learned over the years. Please believe me, what I have shared is 20% theoretical, but 80% is all experience.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sriram. I definitely can vouch for that. I've seen you very closely working on the ground for this part. I have great respect for you as an individual, as an industry leader, in what you have done. I hope that in future we'll also get opportunity to invite you or host you on sessions specifically, which maybe our community would ask for. We'll be happy to collaborate, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Please stay at home, be safe. This is a very critical time, and all of us need to protect ourselves as well as our family members. I wish all of you good health, and thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Mr. Sriram.
Thank you. Thank you, Anik. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.